We have Tatsuya Tanaka. He was born on November 9th, 1981. He is known for creating these very small worlds and working on a miniature scale. You might remember him because we have covered him in the past. We featured him on episode 10 with comparison to Ron Weck. It was more of a contrasting vantage point because Ron Weck works super big and Tanaka works very, very tiny.
And if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, click on the card above and you can actually get taken to that episode. Just FYI. So we should, we also did an episode a while back on Isaac Cordell. Now, a lot of these.
That was episode 1.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of artists out there I find to be really interesting that are working in this miniature kind of tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Cordell and Slinkachu, who's another one that does that, they kind of work in this sort of street art fashion where oftentimes these pieces will be installed in some kind of environment that you might even be able to stumble upon.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes they're left behind.
Right.
Like in the case of, I don't know if Cordell leaves his.
I don't believe he does. And if he does, it's very, very short amount of time.
Right. But in the case of Tanaka, these are done in a studio-like setting for the sake of the photograph, which some of those other artists also do, but sometimes they're on the street. So, but these live in sort of very neat and tidy situations that are shot very, very pro, so to speak. The backgrounds are not real-life backgrounds like you might find with other artists of this type.
Yes.
They're very clean. They're almost very sort of like publication-like on some level.
It stemmed from a project he started doing in 2011 where he decided to create a photo a day using miniatures. He was turned on to miniatures through a girlfriend when he was young. He didn't have a lot of toys, so she gave him some miniatures. He started playing with them and he said, hey, I can make a daily practice with this, and it just kind of took off.
Now, unlike some of the other artists that we mentioned, a lot of Tanaka's work utilizes humor very directly in the way that the figures interact with their sort of recontextualized objects. So oftentimes you'll see something like this toothbrush and the lawnmower, or these field workers and the brush that's been, sort of remade into a little field of plants, so to speak.
He does use a lot of reclaimed tools and implements and revitalizes them.
Right, right. So I appreciate that about Tanaka's work. I like the humor side of it. I also like that he sort of understands the miniature in a world of its own, rather than trying to introduce the miniature into the world that we live in and create this other thing. You might think of an artist named Charles Simmons who did this back in the 70s, where Simmons installed small environments in the streets of New York and actually believed that those worlds existed. So miniatures kind of, when we dive into the imagination, we start to think about them as actual things. Tanaka, I believe, looks at these as smaller tableaus of something that's its own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's Tatsuya Tanaka. He was born November 9th, 1981.